Aren't we excited? Look what just showed up. I've been waiting for this baby for a couple of days now. So I'm gonna make another ukulele.
Whoa, hold on. Another ukulele? Yeah. So way back in April of 2020, during the COVID lockdown, the dudes and I made a little ukulele out of a kit for their little cousin Raven. And to say it was a success would be a gross understatement. Raven loves his ukulele. He takes it with him everywhere. And we had a really good time building it. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to get a kit that required a lot more luthier skills and get busy trying to build that baby. Here we go.
Okay, it's time for a little handmade music, I guess. So, good morning, and let's get started on this ukulele build. Well, where to begin? We got a little instruction booklet. I made this really nice little pattern that's going to lay on top of the back piece and the soundboard, and it shows kind of where your bracing wants to go. We'll work on that. Here are the side pieces, and these came pre-bent, which is kind of handy because I don't have any capacity to bend those. And these are made out of walnut. Pretty nice. Wrapped up in here is the neck piece, and we'll get to that soon enough. This banding is the banding that goes along the inside of the side pieces to give it a little more strength for gluing down the top and the bottom. Bunch of hardware, some crummy strings. We'll upgrade those right off the bat. Here's all our bracing pieces in here. These little rubber bands are for helping the glue to adhere on weird off-size, different kinds of surfaces. Some CA glue, kind of super glue. And then in here is the back and the top. So the back is walnut and the top is solid spruce. Talk a little bit more about spruce later, but that's going to be beautiful when it's done. All right. So first thing we're going to do is get some of this bracing going, and we're going to start on getting that bracing on the back. So with this little pattern lined up perfectly on the inside of our back, we're going to take our little awl here, and where these dark stripes are is where our back brace wants to go, and we're just marking a little push pin hole through here. And then later I'll take this pattern off and we'll connect these dots, and that'll give us a real good indication of where our back brace pieces want to go. So bracing plays a really unique role in the building of a wooden acoustic instrument. The top and the back are so thin that there's not much strength to them. So the bracing gives them some strength, but they're not so heavy that it doesn't allow the body of the instrument to flex, and that's what creates that beautiful, nice tone, good, rich sound. So this is just a little test run for my clamps to make sure everything's going to clamp out nice. And now I'm going to line these little braces with blue tape, and I'll tell you, every step of the way of this build, the goal is to minimize squeeze out. Here's my practice clamp situation. So I'll take this all apart. I'll drop some glue down in between these blue tape pieces, and then this will all go back together just like that. And it'll sit there for, half hour, 45 minutes, hour, till tomorrow, whatever. Spruce is such an interesting wood to work with. It's super light, and it's really strong considering how light it is. During World War II, that reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes actually brainchild this aircraft, this floating pontoon aircraft called the Spruce Goose, and that was a remarkable piece of engineering. They actually made a railroad back across the Olympic Peninsula around Lake Crescent, and it was called the Spruce Railroad. That Spruce Railroad was in order to get access back into those big spruce forests and that was gonna let them get that spruce material out of there for the war effort. And I've actually ridden my mountain bike on the Spruce Railroad. It's not a railroad at all, it's a little mountain trail, but it's pretty awesome. So, while our glue is drying, I'm going to work on this jig, and this jig is going to be the platform upon which the sides are molded. So, that's interesting. So these are going to fit right in here, just like this, inside of these pieces, and then these little round pieces will fit on the side there like that. And that's what's going to hold this guy in compression while we glue up that piece. So that's what we're making here today. Wouldn't mind getting a little bit of a glue space between the two halves, but just so much chance to have it spoogie out all over the outside. I don't need that for anything. So we're just going to do this. That was a fiddly little mess. And I think I'm going to have to do these kind of one side at a time. So this is going to be about 4 different evolutions to get those little side support pieces glued on there. But they're on there now, so we'll see how it goes. Well, welcome to another day in the luthier shop. So what's cooking now? We've got these guys all clean and glued. I've used this piece of sandpaper on this nice smooth block to smooth that whole thing out, top and bottom, so all of these sides are nice and flush. So what we have to do now is we have to fit on the back and the top. So I guess I'm going to start with the back, and it's going to sit in here like this, and you will note that as you look at this, you'll see that it overhangs a little bit, and you can kind of see that the braces there are still sticking out a little bit. And so what I need to do now is I need to mark where those braces are, and then once I get a mark, I'll trim off on the inside, and I'll trim off on the end of the brace right there. And what that'll do is that'll give us a chance to have that back fit down inside of there. And that doesn't really work too well. So if I get in here with my baby chisel, give that a little bit of a work, come up here and take just the slightest little bit of piece off of there. Yeah. Let's take a look and see how this came out. Dun 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 dun. Yeah. Look at that. Nice. That's going to have a really nice tone to it. Looks real clean inside of here. There's not really much to worry about in there. Hey, good morning. We're back in the shop. Today's plan is to trim out these little notches just like we did on the bottom to fit the top in there. And so that's what we're going to be working on today. Get the top fitted on, get the glue up done, get the cool straps of rubber bands all over it, and then just let that guy sit for a while to get to cure up really well. Okay, that's what we're doing today. I think we're ready. I got this all fit in there nice. I'm a little concerned about this is just a little bit proud right here. And when I'll need to squeeze that in a little bit. Maybe I'll throw a clamp on there while I'm doing my rubber banding. But yeah, I think we're ready. Yep, we'll find out. Let's go. Howdy, we're back in the luthier shop for a little swing shift session. You know, this process of wrapping bindings around the body or the neck of an ukulele when you're trying to glue things down is something that's over 150 years old. I was watching a video of the Kamaka ukulele factory, and lo and behold, they were wrapping hemp ropes around ukulele body. Alrighty. Good morning. So here's our dilemma. We're packing up all our bikes and boats, and we're all heading up to the mountains. Our whole family, all my grandsons. That's going to be a gas. But man, I've got this kind of lingering doubt in my head on whether or not my flush trim router bit is going to be the right tool for the job to trim off this little bit of excess around the bottom of the ukulele here. And man, it's done a marvelous job in the past, but this stuff's kind of fragile. So there's such an unknown there that I thought, you know, I'm just going to get up here and knock that out right now, and that'll give us a chance to see if it's going to work or not going to work. I'll know what I'm up against. So let's knock this out real quick, then we'll go up to the mountains and have fun for a few days. Alrighty, stand by. Whew. Well, that was mostly successful. It did a pretty nice little trim job on there. Still got a bunch of sanding to do. Not to worry about that. The neck will cover that up, and the fretboard covers all that up. A little bit of roughness yet to clean up. Tiny little bit of yuckiness back here, but that'll all sand out nice. So yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape. And so let's just put this baby on hold for a while. Alrighty, howdy. We're back in the luthier shop. And today the plan is to get a real smooth cover of sanding all the way around this edge, make this nice and smooth. And then we shift gears and start working on the fretboard. So that's coming up next. And you can see there's 5, 7, 10, and 12. We have little dots in the front, and that's to give you a reminder of where your fingers are. Well, when you're playing the instrument, what you actually see is you're looking down here at the top of this. So I'm going to put little dots in here too. This little piece of plastic, I'll drill a little tiny hole in there, and we'll have a little bitty dot right there, and then 2 dots right here. So that's what we're doing next. What I'm doing is cutting my individual frets to make sure that I have enough length on there, and then I'm lining those out on this upside down piece of tape right here to keep them in place. And we'll tap one side down. Not much in a ukulele happens up the neck above the 12th fret. There's might do a little harmonics or something up there, but there's not much playing up the top end of the fretboard there. Tiny, tiny little applicator tip on here. And I'm just trying to get a little bit of CA glue down inside those slots where the frets are. There's our fretboard. Got our little frets all cut and pounded in there. Got a little glue on the corners. Now here, take a look at this. This is what we're going to be going for. We want to make sure that those frets are all exactly the same height. And it looks like we're starting out pretty smooth. So that's going to be pretty good. There's not going to be much dressing to that. Excellent. Well, good morning. New day in the luthier shop here. Got our little fretboard. It looks pretty ratty right now. It's kind of all kind of cruddy with some wax and whatnot, but it's going to come out okay. Next job is to file down these little nubs so they're nice and flush, and then I'll need to round them off a little bit so they're a lot more comfortable to play when the little ends of the frets are all nice and smooth on the ends. And initially I thought, I guess I'll just use my file and get after those dudes. But man, there's a lot of material on there yet to come down. And then I realized, oh, wait a second. I actually have a bench grinder. So I got that set up, and maybe I'll try and very carefully take a little bit of the bulk of that off of there with the bench grinder. All right, we'll see what happens. Yeah, that actually works pretty good, and then I'll finish them with my little hand file, I think. But for now, I think that's going to be a quick way to get down there. Don't touch that, that's really hot. Hey, I like it. So just doing some final rounding over of the edges of these frets. The idea is you got to make those pretty smooth on the ends so that when you're running up and down the fretboard, you don't have sharp edges on there. You guys ever hear of Rube Goldberg? Back in my day, there was a guy, Rube Goldberg, came up with a kind of just elaborate mouse traps and all kinds of crazy contraptions that would do simple things more complex than they needed to be. And I'm making kind of a Rube Goldberg device here. What I need to do is I need to drill 2 holes that match these 2 holes in the neck right here in the ukulele body. And I got to make sure they line up pretty exactly because this thing needs to be just perfectly placed on there. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now on my Rube Goldberg device. Looks like it's going to be time to start gluing that fretboard down. And then that'll get wrapped with that green rubber band all the way up and down along the fretboard to give it some pressure there. And we should be good. Looks pretty awesome. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I also stopped into my local leather shop and got the supplies to make a really nice custom little strap for our ukulele. So we'll work on that later. Well, when somebody asks me, hey, what'd you do all day? Sanding. Yeah, then what'd you do? More sanding. Many hours later, I don't know how many hours, I'm still sanding. This little process we're doing right here is called slip sanding. So we want to make sure that this neck fits this body perfectly, and you can see just a tiny little bit of air gap through there on both sides. So we'll put this little 80 grit in here like this, a little downward pressure, and you give it a couple of those. So it's time to glue this neck on, and I've got some tape around here so that I don't get any squeeze out. This guy's been fitted somewhat precisely, so it's going to be center lined here. Well, there you go. That's after 2 o'clock. I'm just going to call that a work day. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, good morning. Last night I went down and took those bindings and clamps off. Man, it's starting to look more like a ukulele and less like a box of sticks. I did get a little ahead of us here, and I laid out the placement of the bridge, so we'll pick up from there. I also noticed I was handling these fret ends where I filed those off, and then I came up and played one of my other ukuleles and said, yeah, I thought those were smooth, but those are not as smooth as they need to be, so I guess 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Got to go down and work on those fret ends a little bit more, but we're getting there. So here we go. Guess it's time for some finish on here. I'm just using a little satin polyurethane. All right, moving on with the day. Here's what's happening. This little beauty right here is just kind of hanging on the drying rack, and while that guy's hanging up there to dry, I'm gonna shift gear now to the leather shop. We're gonna make a nice little sling for that guy, a little strap. Got a light little sanding with 400 grit sandpaper between coats to finish. Well, that's 2 coats. Looks pretty good. I think it's going to be all right. Okay, well here we are. Next phase is we're going to run a little steel wool across this beauty, and that just makes everything nice and smooth and playable. So there's a little practice clamp up for my bridge situation. A lot of moving parts to that, but I think we got it. Let's take that apart, slap some glue on there and see what happens. All right. So next step of the way here is we're going to use just a little bit of walnut oil, a very delicate little bit of walnut oil, and trying to rub it in on these frets to try to give that a little conditioning there. Let's see how it goes. Well, got the strap buttons on, and now I'm fitting on the tuners. Well, good morning. We're back in the luthier shop for kind of the final phase here. I threw these junk strings on just to get a sense of how high the nut was. So this depth right here is a little too tall, and certainly down here where the saddle is, you can see we're a little too tall, our string height off of here. So I'm gonna unscrew those babies and take those strings back off, and then file down the nut and file down the saddle, and hopefully we'll get those strings lowered down a little bit, and it will sound like an ukulele instead of just being maybe some wall art. All right, let's see how it goes. Yeah, well, here we are. We got these junk strings on, and you just can't test or tell how it's going to play with junk strings. So we're going to go Diodario fluorocarbon for tenors in a low G, and hopefully that'll bring it around. Alrighty. Yeah. Those strings that came with this little kit, I think came off somebody's weed whacker. So strings make the difference. It's a stringed instrument. Of course strings make the difference. But yeah, I think we're good. If you should lose me, oh yeah, you lose a good thing. All right, we'll call this one done right here. Thanks for following along.
Yeah, okay, maybe I better finish up with a couple little glamour shots here. So it's been a really good project and lots of fun. And thank you all for following along with me there.